I'm Rolene Marks. Welcome to Modiin and Beyond. Join me every Sunday between 3 and 4 on Radio Modiin as we take a look at what's happening in Modiin, Israel, and beyond. I'm Rolene Marks. This is Modiin and Beyond. You know, we say every week it's Tuesday and not Sunday. I don't do this specifically to confuse everyone. Hey, I'm already confused. Anyway, welcome to the show. It has been a while. And I'm looking forward to talking to my two phenomenal guests today. I've got Adam Levick, the co-editor of Camera UK. He's sitting opposite me. And then I'm going to be speaking to Justine Friedman. We're going to be talking about how to take care of ourselves, especially as women in a time of war. Our first guest, Seidner from Beit, Halochem, the Tzahal Disabled Veterans Organization, wasn't able to join us this morning for technical reasons. And we understand because we're in a war situation, everything's fluid, but hopefully we will get her on soon. And if you want to be featured on Modiin and Beyond, hey, pop me a message. You can find me on Facebook at Rolene Marks. But let's get into the nuts and bolts, the tachlis of it all, sitting opposite me. Adam, I mean, you're now family. You really are. Is Adam Levick, the co-editor of Camera UK. And we're going to be talking about what we're observing in the media, out there in cities around the world, and just what we're finding. And we're going to share that with you. So, Adam, we live in the media space. Not an easy place to be right now.
No, and in some ways, my job monitoring the media is fulfilling and therapeutic because I get to fight back against lies, misrepresentations, incitement to anti-Semitism. On the other hand, I have to experience that first before I fight back against it. So, it's a mixed bag. But I would say, and I think I wrote this on Facebook or on Twitter, I still wouldn't have imagined prior to October 7th that if something happened on the scale of what happened on October 7th, meaning the mass slaughter, rape, mutilation, torture of 1,200 plus innocent Jews had happened, that the ferocious reaction against Israel and against Jews would have happened. I am still, after all these years, I guess, able to be shocked. And I have been shocked, appalled, and angry over people doubling down on their hatred of Israel instead of having one of those, cognitive dissonance moments where something happens, it's an aha moment, and it makes you reflect on your previous views. I think there's been some people that have kind of been bugged by reality a little bit, but far too many people have engaged in what the writer named Shani Moore has described dissonance avoidance. That is, they just avoid all information that would contradict their previous beliefs, and they double down in their revulsion at the Jewish victims. And it's been one of the tragedies to come after October 7th.
Douglas Murray, who is probably one of our greatest friends at the moment, the incredible writer, he's in Israel at the moment. I saw him visiting injured soldiers and police yesterday. The ultimate mensch. I think it was around the 8th of October. He wrote something. He said, every now and then you fire a flare into the air and it illuminates who are the anti-Semites, who are the haters around there. And the 7th of October has certainly done that. It's illuminated all the haters. It's like they were waiting for an occasion to let their inner hatred freak flag fly. And they're certainly doing that. And we've seen, it's astounding, massacre denial, despite the absolute glee, the body cam footage, everything that was captured by the Hamas terrorists. I said on air, on radio this morning, if you don't believe us about the tunnels and the use of human shields, if you don't believe the empirical evidence which has been laid out before you, believe Hamas in their own words, believe Ghazi Hamad on television saying, we have tunnels, the tunnels are for us, our civilians are the problem of the United Nations. But I think what we are seeing now, and we've certainly warned about it for years, we've said anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. There's no hiding behind that. I don't hate Jews. I'm just against Zionism. There's no hiding behind that anymore. And I don't think that what we're seeing in the streets of London and Cape Town and Melbourne and around the world is a genuine concern about the Palestinian people. I think this is this is the Jew haters out there saying the quiet part out loud and acting on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that particularly like one of the things that we've been focusing on at camera is the misreporting about the people that have been tearing down the posters of the hostages, including babies, which, again, it's up there. It'll go up there with one of the more despicable memories I have of the aftermath of October 7th. And, the New York Times had the gall to frame the story as one of balance. Both sides claim the other one's wrong. The people that are tearing down the posters are just engaging in protest, as if there's any moral defense whatsoever about tearing down posters of abducted men, women, and children, hostages, including babies. As if, they're just so incapable, many media outlets, of condemning not just the Palestinians, but pro-Palestinian activists, that they were able to manage to file a report that framed it as a both sides story. And in fact, Camera put up a billboard outside the New York Times offices with a big photo of one of the young girls, I think 3 or 4, that's been abducted and is in Gaza, and just reminding them that, there's no moral gray area in this area. Like people that are tearing down posters of the 200 plus abductees, it's in a sense denying their humanity. It's in a sense saying that no matter what happens to Jews and Israelis, we just don't want to look at their humanity because we're so convinced of their that they're demons, that we don't want to be reminded. We don't want the world to be reminded that they're human beings and that they've suffered horribly since October 7th.
I think that's exactly that, this dehumanization of Jews and Israelis. But, let's also remind the New York Times and other people out there that there are foreign nationals amongst those that have been taken hostage. And I'm going to say this to camera in case anybody who's watching this has an inkling of wanting to rip down a poster. If you are triggered by a 10-month-old baby boy being held hostage by a terrorist organization in Gaza, and you feel the need to deface or rip down a poster, you are a rabid racist with no soul. And I think I'm going to say that as succinctly as that. But let's play devil's advocate here. Are organizations like the New York Times, like others around the world, genuinely feeling this? Or do you think seeing the volume of hate protests, the amount of hate protests around the world in just about every city. I mean, you can't get into an Uber these days, apparently, without a Palestinian flag, or go buy a cup of coffee without a barista wearing a Palestinian flag. Do you think that it is deep in the Kishka's hatred, or maybe fear of the sheer volume of anti-Israel protesters that we are seeing, that they're saying, okay, let's be a little careful how we cover this?
It depends on the media outlet, but I think the New York Times they think that their base, they're the people that are invested in the New York Times brand, are pro-Palestinian, and rather than engaging in serious journalism and rather engaging in reflection and careful analysis and moral clarity, I think have decided for many years now that they're just going to feed what their readers want to hear, want to read, which is the opposite of journalism, of course. But journalism, is supposed to report without fear or favor. And instead, what we see continually in the New York Times and other media outlets since October 7th, though not all, is this just refusal to push back on the narrative that they've been pushing for years. I think partly out of self-preservation, because they'd have to admit that they've been wrong, right? That they've been feeding the beast, that they're reporting, trying to frame the Palestinians and their radical supporters in the West are the good guys. Well, that's been blown to pieces since October 7th. And I think, like I said, getting back to the cognitive dissonance, I think instead of actually having a serious internal discussion about that, they just decided to give the people what they wanted.
I mean, let's take a look at some of the broadcast media. The BBC still can't say the word terrorist. Sky News as well. That you know it because I message you all the time. Drives my blood pressure up. And I go back to what's her name, Anne Billings, I think her
Botting.
name, Anne Bodding. That's the one. When the Al Ali Hospital or the Al Ali parking lot was hit by an errant Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket, and interviewing Mark Regev. Mark is the spokesperson for the Prime Minister of Israel. You know, no matter what you feel about the Prime Minister, it's irrelevant in a time of war. But her opening question to him in the most bitter and nasty way was it you? I mean, what journalist speaks to somebody with that tone of voice? I think you got a message from me immediately to say, how do they let this woman, Kay Burley, as well, speaking to Elon Levy, our lion from Zion, our government spokesperson, and basically forcing the questions as if we don't have a heart, we don't have a soul for children in Gaza, who unfortunately are being used as human shields and paying a horrific price by Hamas. And I would want to pose the question to them, we've got children here suffering with terrible trauma as well. We've got children here who witnessed their parents, their grandparents, their siblings, their friends brutally slaughtered and tortured. And have any of you followed up on how Israel's children are doing?
Yeah, and just as an aside, since you brought up Sky, there was an exchange a couple of days ago. I don't know if you saw it, but between Enan Levy, who's been great, by the way, and a anchor from BBC. I think his name is Bill Thompson. And the BBC presenter was grilling Elan on why the IDF was engaging in military activities near a hospital or near these sensitive areas. And Levy was saying, we presented evidence after evidence that these facilities are being used by Hamas illegally as a military base, and that even though Israel was taking extreme precautions to avoid civilian casualties, the fact is that Hamas terrorists intentionally placed their military assets under hospitals. And the response by the BBC presenter was this kind of condescending, oh, isn't it convenient that every time I challenge you on why the IDF is engaging in attacks near a hospital, you claim that that's where Hamas assets are? I mean, showing an astonishing amount of arrogance, ignorance, and again, indicating the BBC's institutional Palestinian anti-Israel bias. And to his credit, Elan Levy handled it adeptly like he always does. But just the pure arrogance and you really have to be uninformed. You really have to be living in a cave somewhere not to acknowledge that Hamas plants its tunnel system and its military strategic locations underneath. I think recently it was disclosed that underneath the children's hospital. So talk about cruelty towards children, cruelty towards civilians. That's something that's never mentioned. But if you haven't got a chance, I recommend watching that clip because the arrogance, the condescension from this BBC presenter was astonishing.
Yeah, I didn't see the BBC presenter pushing back when Allied forces hunting ISIS in Raqqa had to demolish a hospital there because, as we know, under international laws, the laws of armed conflict, the protected status of hospitals, of ambulances is changed when they are used to disguise military assets. But let's take a look at the tabloids now. Listen, I love a good tabloid. I go there for my daily gossip, but it seems to be that the real investigative journalism is being done by the tabloids. The Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom, phenomenal. Their front cover a week or so ago of the children who are being held hostage. They're embedded with our troops, moving along with phenomenal journalists like Trey Yeast from Fox News. He's also somebody hand that man a Pulitzer. He deserves it. The Daily Mail being balanced, but let's also look at broadsheets, the Telegraph being phenomenal. Do you see a change with some of the media in the language that they are using?
Yeah, I mean, even the worst media outlets have now decided that they were going to accurately tell readers that these seemingly arbitrary casualty figures coming from Gaza. They've been noting in most media outlets that these are can't be verified, and they were provided by the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. So I think which camera has had a lot of problems with in the past. Jake Tapper has done a fantastic job.
Anderson Cooper as well.
Anderson Cooper I mean, maybe we're setting the bar low, but just showing humanity towards the victims of October 7th and holding Hamas accountable. So, it's not true that the entire media is horrible, but those media outlets that have been bad, like the BBC, like the Guardian, it's almost as if they go to their way to try to incite more hatred and repulsion towards the Israeli victims. And like I said, they double down. And they're just convinced of Israeli malevolence, and no amount of new information will change them. In fact, speaking of the Guardian, which I have a lot of expertise on, um, early on, since October 7th, a lot of the more radical pro-Palestinian activists have been, their tactic to divert attention away from the massacre was to accuse Israel of engaging in genocide. Now, this accusation of genocide, which of course has no basis, was floating as early as October 7th on social media, meaning before there was a real IDF response. And the Guardian has saw fit, and I've documented 16 times in the past, since October 7th, they've published articles or op-eds that have accused Israel in some way or the other of engaging in ethnic cleansing or genocide, which is a perverse, it's a moral inversion. It has no basis in reality. But I think the fact that media outlets are platforming such raw hatred, such raw disregard towards the victims of October 7th, I think is an indictment of Western elite and Western elite opinion. The academia, a lot of these journalists come from elite, often Ivy League universities, where these kind of ideas
and we see
simmer.
what's happening there.
Yeah. And so you see this intersection between the intelligentsia within academia, the media outlets, and the protest, pro-Palestinian protest movement. So this intersection really creates dynamics where in London in particular, there's just this hundreds of thousands of people came out last Saturday in what we've been describing, I think, completely accurately, and which the Telegraph has been describing, and which the British Home Secretary accurately described, the former British Home Secretary, as hate marches.
Well, the BBC and their Channel 4 didn't get that memo, because according to their broadcast, it was all peaceful. I did notice that the BBC was conspicuously absent from a vigil the next day in London, noted by the people of England, who said, look at these pro-Israel, well, you can't really call them protesters, marchers. They're singing God Save the King. They're holding the Union flag.
Yeah.
They're silent and respectful and singing songs of peace. Now, I just want to, before we let you go, I just want to touch on one thing that I've noticed. I don't know if you're noticing, is that when I do read the comments on articles and YouTube clips, I see that people are standing with Israel. I think a lot of people are turned off by this violent, belligerent, hateful rhetoric that we see coming from the other side. France, 180,000 to 200,000 people marching against anti-Semitism. Not all of those were Jews.
Yeah, I mean, I think the term silent majority is used too much, but I think that might be the case this time. I think polls, particularly in America, that I've seen, there's an overwhelming majority of people support Israel in this latest round of violence, and especially in reaction to October 7th. I think there's a good case to be made that, Middle Britain and Middle America, just to use those terms to signify the larger group of citizens throughout the world that aren't necessarily that political, but they have good moral intuition, I think are behind Israel, behind Jews. The problem is that a lot of these anti Semites, anti Zionists, often have a lot of influence within their society, within their
Mm.
political echelon, within their academic echelon, and within the media echelon. So, on one hand, it's heartening that I think, like you said, there are a lot, definitely a majority of people within most Western countries that aren't activists, but clearly, know an anti-Semitic atrocity when they see it, versus those that are in within the media and academia and positions of influence who are on the other side.
Adam Levick, the co-editor of Camera, who I can talk to all day. Such a pleasure to chat to you. Where can we find your work?
Go to camera.org, and from there you can see a link to all of our sites. As you know, we publish articles monitoring the news in Spanish, Hebrew, Arabic, and English. And also, feel free to donate. As you know, our work is nonstop, and right now it's even more nonstop. And we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But I guess the first place to go is just camera.org.
Adam Levick, camera.org. And, we're going to get you in again soon because, hey, you're family. We're going to take a short music break. On the other side of this, Justine Friedman teaches us how we can be looking after ourselves a lot better during this time. John Parr, Men in Motion, the theme from St. Elmo's Fire. Hey, who doesn't love a good Rob Lowe movie? I know I love a good Rob Lowe movie, and he was here recently. Rob, the next time you're in Israel, call me. I'll be your tour guide. And a lady that I love chatting to all the time because she gives such sound advice and she brings the greatest energy is our resident clinical nutritionist and mindset coach, Justine Friedman. Justine Boketov, how are you? Justine? Okay, we're waiting to get Justine on. We've had so many technical issues this morning, electrical failures, changes, but hey, we just roll with it because there are much bigger issues out there right now. So we're Israeli. We know how to roll with the times. But I'm going to use this opportunity to remind you that this is Modiin and Beyond on Radio Modiin. I'm Rolene Marks. And if you want to advertise your business or even sponsor the show, hey, why not? We are getting more and more and more coverage. You can be in touch with me either via my Facebook page at Rolene Marks, or you can be in touch with us via our website at www.radiomodiin.co.il. That's www.radiomodiin.co.il. And she's here. Justine, I was giving you such a glowing introduction. Justine? Gremlins. Justine, are you there? Okay, so I tell you what, we're going to try and get Justine back. So we're going to take another short music break. Justine?
You only see what your eyes want to see. How can life be what
can't hear me at all?
want it to be? You're frozen when
Let
your
me see.
heart's not open. You're so
Can you
consumed
hear me
with
now?
how much you get.
I can't hear you either,
waste your
actually,
time with hate and regret. You're broken
or see you.
when your heart's not open. If I could melt your heart,
Phone is not him. I don't know if you can hear me now. I'm just not sure if the quality will be as good.
give yourself to me. You are the key. Now there's no point in placing the blame, and you should know I suffer the same. If I lose you, my heart will be broken. Love is a bird, she needs to fly. Let all the hurt inside of you die. You're frozen when your heart's not open. If I melt your heart, we'd never be apart. Give yourself to me.
Well, it looks like the electrical trip has knocked out our Zoom and everything. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to call it a day for today. But don't forget to join me again next Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. as I speak to a variety of guests right here on Modiin and beyond. I'm Rolene Marks. This has been, technically challenging, but also very interesting edition of the show. Take care, guys. Look after yourselves. I'll see you again next week.